Okay, seeing none, I will close the public portion. And do we have additional?
Yes,
We
for
have more.
for the hearing piece?
Yes.
Okay, so this is part of the hearing.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
hopefully it's swift.
I will make it swift. First of all, the Commissioner of Education had developed a program to grade each school called, and the program had self-assessment at the center of it, and it was the ABBR, which is the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. The rubric was developed by the Department of Education so that every school can implement this program. Just in terms of the self-assessment, there's 8 core elements, and I will actually give you an example of one later on. You'll see pulled out from some of the evidence we have there. But you have HIB programs and approaches, training, additional staff instruction, curriculum and instruction. That's the embedded piece that goes into our programming, HIB personnel, school and HIB reporting procedures, HIB investigation procedures, and HIB reporting, making sure that everyone is reporting on time, that all staff are making sure that they report anything that they may see to the anti-bullying specialist or to the principal. Now, the process, it's required that this be available for the public. The self-assessment must be approved by the board for September 30th. School district's grade, again, is the average of all the schools, and each school must post their grade and the district's grade on their website. This will also be on the Department of Education's website this fall, all the schools in the state. I'll briefly just go through the scoring and give you an example in a couple of minutes. If you have no programs or minimal to hardly anything, you'd get 0. If you have partial programming, but it doesn't really address everything, that would be a 1. Meeting all requirements is a 2, and if you exceed or go above what the state is asking for in an individual area, that would be a 3. Okay, so based on our 2015, 2016 self-assessment, we had a couple of needs that we wanted to look at. Additional training for parents. We also wanted to do additional training for administration, supervisors, DCs, et cetera, and also for the safety teams. And I talked a little earlier this evening about the safety teams. And once again, the safety teams have to look at trends in HIB. They have to look at programming, and it's direct to the school. So it's not something that we do as a group. That has to be, each safety team in each school looks at what those needs are. So how did we address some of that? We did a boot camp for new administrators. So as they came on and got hired, what we did is we sat with them and went through the HIB process. We talked about not only the process, but how to do the investigation, how to work with parents, how to work with the students and the staff so that we don't have the recidivism on HIBs. What we're trying to do is to educate everyone so that we can reduce HIBs and, of course, increase the school climate and make it better. We did individual trainings depending on the school and the needs at that school. We went out to the schools and we did individual trainings with the principal and the student assistant specialists. And also we trained our safety teams, additional safety teams training, and of course I mentioned earlier the back to school night. We had the parent video for all parents at all back to school nights to see. Also, we have monthly meetings with our student assistant specialists. At those meetings, we do a training. So portion of each meeting monthly is a training on HIB claims, on how and what to look for, and how to work with your safety teams. Okay, so based on the 2016 and 17 self-assessment, the district improved. We improved overall scoring. There was one area that we wanted to address. That was the overall training of staff. We had been initially trained in the Olveus program when this law first came out. This summer, we were able to train our student assistant specialists again. So now This September 1, all staff will be trained again. The district initiative, all staff will be trained, and all of the anti-bullying Bill of Rights in terms of what to do, how to look for it. What we're also looking for at this training is to make sure that the new staff that have come on in the last year or two get that additional piece as well, so that they're very aware, and we continue to work with them on that. As far as the scoring goes, briefly, the overall elementary score this year was 77.6. Our overall secondary scores were 77.6, and the district total average was 77.6, which is up 0.9 from last year. If we were doing a letter grade, that would have,
That's uncanny,
Been-
77.6 for both
it's out of
elementary.
78, not out of 100.
Still, 77.6 for elementary
It's-
and secondary, it's
it's
exactly the
outstanding.
same?
The elementary score,
Let's go back a slide.
Sure.
Yes, it does have 77.6.
Let's go back a slide.
yes,
Looks like 70
it's 77.6 was, I apologize, this might be an error. I will make sure we change that.
What's the right
The
answer?
overall score is a 77.6.
Right, what's the right thing for elementary and secondary?
Yeah, I will get that. It should be, I only have this slide here. I'll get that for the board and make sure that I correct that. But we did go up 0.9. It should be, you should have it possibly in front of you there?
Susanna has it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that these are averages of, it's school by school, but.
The district average was 77.6.
No, I see that, but we have an elementary and a secondary average, and that's why I said it's exactly the same, which is uncanny. Yes. So,
Okay, I just want to give you a quick example of what the ABBR sheet looks like in terms of what we get from the state, and I'll just quickly run through one example so you can see what this is. Okay, for 1A, and I'll have to, because I can't see up there, the school, this is the HIB programming approaches and initiatives. The school annually established HIB programs and initiatives. Again, if it meets none of the criteria, there's no programs, it's a 0. A 1 would be it has HIB programs that are being embedded, or the programs include some but not all of the following groups: school staff, students, administrators, volunteers, parents, law enforcement, and community members. If it meets all of the requirements, that means the HIB programs that are embedded, established, programs do include all of those people that I had mentioned earlier. To exceed, the program and approaches, initiatives were embedded throughout the educational program. It also includes the people we mentioned before and other community members. Okay, I'll give you an example of what a 3 would be. The essential lessons, this is from an elementary school, recognizing bullying and normal conflict. This is a K-12 K-5 program where we teach the students not only to recognize what bullying is, but understand it against what conflict is. And also iMessages, using iMessages when they have feelings, if they're hurt, if they're upset, in order to focus on them and letting people know how they are feeling. Okay, these would just be a couple of examples of what would be in the ABBR grading component. Now, each one of these 8 elements have 4 to 5 different components in it. So there, you can see how the evidence, as it builds up over the course of a year, this is what we have, I showed you tonight, the binders from each school. And what the process is as the year is going on, as there's programming, as there is something that is happening at the school, the safety team collects that information and makes sure that they keep it in their binder so that at the end of the year, when there's a self-assessment check, they can look and they can score appropriately where they should be. After they do that, and the whole safety team agrees on what their score would be for a particular element, it goes, the principal will sign off on it, It will go up to our student services supervisor, who will check it against the evidence that they have. After that, it'll go to me for a final check. If at some point we don't have enough evidence, and sometimes we will work with the principals on that, if there's something we feel that the score doesn't match what the evidence that we have, what we will do is modify that grade. What the state can do at any point is call in any and all of our documentation, and we have to be able to, at that point, say and show them exactly what we have and be able to provide the documentation for the grades that we have been given. Okay, now that's the material part of it that we have to do for the state. Of course, really the goal, as we mentioned, Louise and I had talked about earlier, it's really to take care of the whole student. So these programs that the state have put together have worked. We've seen success in changing in school climate. We've had more students that have come forward, more students that have said that things are really positive. One of the things we do in some of the schools right now are staff and student information that goes out so that the students can give us feedback. So we survey them to see what they're feeling in terms of what the school is like, what the climate is like, and so we get some very good feedback from that. And so we are going in the right direction. So as much as the documentation can be overbearing at times, I do believe that this has been a law that has really helped in general. And this is the toughest law in the nation, New Jersey's law. Okay, do you have any questions on any of that? Tried to make it as close to.
Yeah, I
quick
just,
as I can.
because I wasn't sure if I was supposed to ask it last time, but you brought it up again,
Okay.
so it made me think about it.
Sure.
When you were talking about how we're trying to teach students the difference between bullying and the code of conduct or conflicts. So my question, I guess, is why are we still seeing such huge numbers of the HIB investigations versus the confirmed? You know, certainly at the
question.
elementary school level, I get it more, but just looking at the 3-year comparison also.
Sure.
I'm seeing it at the upper schools as well. I mean, there's students.
Higher investigations, a lot of investigations.
There's a lot of investigations for not as many confirmed, which is good at some levels, but at another level, obviously, if we're having 100 cases of people feeling that they've somehow been wronged or being bullied, you know, we're then finding, you know, maybe 10% of those to be accurate. What do you, like, how do we, you
Well-
know, close that gap?
Excellent question. I'm sure Mr. Giacobbe would agree that there are certain components in this law that say we have to investigate. So if someone comes forward and
Yes.
says, I've been bullied, or a parent says, my son or daughter's been bullied, we do have that obligation to make sure we look into it. And as we've been taught very well, that we do want to do those investigations, as though they may be painstaking. That's true. Now, if it is not an HIB, then we can work on conflict resolution. We can work on, you know, other areas, and we can bring the students together and try to figure out what the problem may be. And that's where the conflict comes in. A lot of times it is conflict.
Yes.
So investigations may be up. That's because we will, and we continue to do what we're supposed to do, which is to investigate all potential HIB conflict or HIB situations or issues. Now, that being said, we continue to teach, and we try to continue to teach our kids at every level, including the elementary level, to be aware of what the difference is the best that we can, so that they're not thinking they're just an HIB, that they're not coming to us with that, you know, with it being, oh, I've been harassed or I've been bullied. Rather to say, I am, and we talked about I messages before, I'm having a problem with this, or I have an issue, or I have a concern. And if we are, and the more we do that, I think the more, again, this is all through education.
Absolutely.
So hopefully, the more we can do that, we can also help kids learn how to
Do
cope.
we also educate the parents as well? Because sometimes you'll have something
Absolutely.
where a parent will come and say, well, my son or my daughter's been bullied, and it could just be a conflict between two students that, you know, it takes a sitting down. But, you know, I don't know the percentages of how many of the bullying requests come from a parent versus the student themselves. And I hear about all sorts of ones where
Sure.
someone will tell me in a school something that I find amusing, but it's come from a parent, where a parent has actually said, well, this is why my child was bullied. We've investigated. Of course, it's generally found to be not a bullying case, but I'm not sure how to get across to those parents because maybe it would free up some of the time that we're spending on all these investigations, if we could educate parents and the kids, you know, the difference. I don't ever want a child to feel they can't come forward if they do
Absolutely.
feel they're being bullied, but at the same time, you know, if you're having a, you know, something between two students and it can be worked out, it's just a conflict. How do we get the student and the parent not to come so that our numbers are, you know, 100 when only 30 of them are actually bullying
Well,
cases?
and
Lou,
there
was
is-
any of that addressed in the video that you show parents at
Yes, well,
back to
that's
school
part of
night?
it. And there is something good about doing these investigations and about having parents, even if you're gonna call parents and say, listen, this wasn't an HIV. Part of it is addressed in the video that we sent out last year, but also, what we do is whenever there is a no, if you are a parent and you say, I think my son or daughter's been
Yeah.
bullied, we ask that each principal, when they call up the parent, we ask to invite the parent in. So discuss the whole difference between what is bullying and what isn't, and really make sure we get to the root of the problem. And we found that to be somewhat successful, that we want to do even more of that, but that has been successful, because now we're not only educating that parent, but anyone else that they may talk to about HIB and about bullying. But again, it goes back to what we do in the schools. If we can educate the students so what they know, the language, they know what they're looking for. So when they go home, they're not complaining about a bullying incident. They might say, I'm having a conflict with someone, or they
Yeah.
might be able to say, I've spoken to either my teacher or my student assistant specialist or the administrator in the building about an issue. And that's that positive supports, and
No,
those
I
are the
like-
thing that's sources of strength, and, you know, especially at the secondary level, obviously, are hoping, that we're hoping
Well,
to
you
do
see, I
even
think, was
more.
it 5 or 6 years ago, I'm trying to remember when it started, when the whole anti-bullying,
Mm-hmm.
we were told, I mean, I remember we were told, you know, Dr. Magister used to say, if somebody comes to you and says that they have a bullying report, you have to let me know, because I have to have the building supervisor notified by midnight of that night. So I know for a while, we've had that swell of almost everything, you know, you don't like the color of my blouse, well, you're bullying me, you know, you think so-and-so did, you know, kick the football farther than me, you're bullying me. So I know we had that big swell, so.
And sometimes, you know,
If it's coming back, then.
sometimes there will be, you know, one year might be more than the next. But I think if we look at every situation as a chance to educate our parents, our students, and the community, I think that will also be a positive thing
These
for
are,
us.
this is going in order, 14, 15, 16, because then we had a
Mm-hmm.
huge, just noticing here, we went from 51 to 102, and this is the total number of investigations, and then we did go back down to 68, which I liked seeing. It was a huge
And-
rise in 1 year,
And
so that's.
sometimes, you know, again, I'll say it again, and there is no way to really stop that from happening.
Yeah.
We have to investigate as they come in. But I think, again, through education and through students feeling good about the supports that they have on personal level and in the school, I think that is going to help us overall with our HIB numbers. This was a better year, but there are
Yeah,
going to be
it's-
years that, you know, we can't always control that, but I think it all goes back to educating at each opportunity that we can.
I like that you guys are putting this all together, the pieces incorporating the sources of strength and how it all is tying together to hopefully make things better for our student body. Because we always talk about the academics, we talk about the athletics and all the things we do, but, you know, we said that the coping skills, I mean, I want these kids to graduate and to have the ability to cope, and not to feel that if someone disagrees with them or has a difference of opinion that they're somehow being bullied, but to know it's okay to be able to have disagreements and still be, you know, friends or coexist. So that's a big thing for me. These kids running to the whole, I'm being bullied, I'm feeling bullied. I never want a child ever to feel that way, because you hear so many cases that are really, truly bullying,
Mhm.
but at the same time, you know, I like how you guys are, you know, tying this all together with the positivity, and hopefully then looking forward, you know, in the next 3-year snapshot, it's gonna go continually down.
Well, it's greatly appreciated how the board has supported the programs, because without your support, we couldn't do this. So we thank you for the support.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.